Good news, friend. Even if you just stumbled across this video because you're up at 2 a.m., may have partaken in too many adult beverages, and looking to make some seriously poor financial decisions and really don't care about the Trijicon TA44, this will still be a kick-ass video because we've put the TA44 on so many amazing guns in the past few months that this whole video will be top-notch gun porn if nothing else. We always like to thoroughly test everything we review, and we've been running the TA44 for quite a while, actually almost a year. We've had it on the Zenith Z5P, the CMMG Banshee 9mm, the outstanding Q Honey Badger, the Banshee Mark 5.7, and now it sits on the Magestic Ghetto Blaster. If you've been watching the channel through all that, you may have thought that I have several of these things, but sadly no. It's all been this one optic on all those guns. If you haven't seen all those videos, you need to go back and watch them all because they're all pretty epic, even if I do say so myself. So here's the basic appeal of the Trijicon ACOG if you're not familiar with them. The major appeal to me is that they don't use batteries. The reticle inside the unit is illuminated by fiber optics during daylight, and then they have tritium in them that will illuminate the reticle in low light or nighttime. Now, tritium does have a half-life, so at some point the unit won't illuminate at night anymore, but according to my roughly 5 minutes of research I did on Google, you should get about 12 to 15 years out of the tritium. Trijicon will renew the tritium if it fades and you send the unit back to them, but the daylight illumination from the fiber optics will always work no matter what. That's extremely robust and much better than even the longest lasting battery powered red dots on the market. ACOGs are also known for their extremely tough build quality. They're used by our military in some of the harshest conditions all over the world. The TA44 is quite a bit different from the typical ACOG, and I will also say that the TA44 is also my favorite ACOG that I have ever had the opportunity to use. First off, it is much smaller than other ACOGs. The TA44 is actually much closer to the size of a traditional red dot than it is a traditional ACOG, which is much bigger. The TA44 is only 4 inches long and it's 1.6 inches tall. Of course, that's just the unit and not the mount. Here it is up next to some well-known red dots to give you a better idea, and the TA44 only weighs in at 5.1 ounces. ACOGs are also known for their remarkable clarity, and trust me, the camera doesn't even come close to doing this optic justice in the clarity department. This thing is so clear and so sharp, the only thing I can compare it to is everything else feels like I don't have my glasses on, and then when I look through the ACOG, it's like putting them on. Speaking of glasses, the reticle is also etched, so it shouldn't be a problem for anyone, even those with astigmatism. I personally have astigmatism, and the TA44 works amazingly well for me. On top of being one of the absolute clearest optics I've ever looked through, and easily the clearest red dot, the eye relief is also very forgiving. Trijicon lists the eye relief at 2.4 inches, but it is much more forgiving than that. You can easily make out the reticle if you're way back on the optic or right up close. It's much more forgiving and usable than a traditional ACOG. Next feature that I love is the 1.5 magnification. Now you may be thinking, what's the point of 1.5 magnification? And before I used it, I may have felt the same way. But what the magnification does is it's low enough that it doesn't interfere or distort in close quarters work, while at the same time that slight magnification gives you a huge advantage when you want to stretch the optic out at distance. We were easily able to get hits at distance with this optic on guns like the Honey Badger as well as the CMMG Banshee Mark 5.7.
So he knows what he was holding at.
Yeah, that was a hit. I know it was a hit.
You're holding it.
I told you where I was holding that.
Let me tell you what all this means to me. While I know this isn't technically a red dot, in my opinion, it's the best red dot or red dot alternative. What you have is something that is roughly the same size or maybe just slightly larger than other red dots. Its clarity is better than any red dot I've used, and yes, that includes Aimpoint. It doesn't use batteries, and while it is magnified, the magnification isn't enough to distort and can be used at close quarters, while at the same time giving you an advantage at distances. So in my opinion, the Trijicon TA44 is the best red dot. ACOGs have always been thought of as an optic that bridged the gap between magnified scopes and red dots, but the TA44 almost creates a new category that's superior to a red dot without many of the drawbacks that you can get from a traditional ACOG. Now would probably be a good time to remind you that if you're interested in getting your own Trijicon TA44 or any other optic, you can save 5% with the code ALARSENAL5 at Optics Planet. You get the optics you want, and it helps out the channel a little bit. It's a win-win for everybody. This particular TA44 is equipped with the Primary Arms ACSS reticle, and this thing is pretty awesome. I'm going to go through this pretty quick because you could easily spend about 10 minutes talking about this reticle alone, and there's a lot going on here. But I'm just going to give you a quick rundown and give you my thoughts on it as a full-fledged 1024th% operator. So basically you have a large circle that can be used for really close quarters or as a lead or follow for running or moving objects. The top of the chevron should be zeroed for 50 to 200 yards with 5.56. 300 yards will be the bottom of the chevron, then dots for 400 and 500 yards. There are also conversions for other popular calibers. Then at the bottom there is a range estimator. These series of black lines allow you to place an average height man of 5'10" inside them and tell you how far away the target or Teletubby is. So if the Teletubby is in between these lines, he's 300 yards away. Here he's 400 yards away. And here he's 500 yards away. So this will allow you to quickly determine your range so you know where to aim on the reticle if you wanted to shoot the Teletubby. Also of note, these lines represent 18 inches at the respective distances, which should roughly be the measurement of a shoulder distance at those ranges. The reticle works extremely well, and what I like about it, being fully 1024th operator, is all those lines and dots give you excellent reference points no matter what caliber you are using. So you can kind of tailor the use of the reticle for whatever you're using it for, like making 200-yard shots with subsonic 300 blackout, or taking 5.7 out to 200 yards. For both of those shots, we use the lines for the range estimation, but irregardless, they work because they are directly below the primary reticle. If I were in the market for a TA44, I would definitely get the ACSS reticle because it just gives you so many more options instead of just the circle and dot, which the TA44 is also available with. With all this awesomeness, there's only one potential bad thing I could find about the Trijicon ACOG TA44, and I had to search pretty hard. It can suffer from blooming like all ACOGs do. If you're in a bright area while shooting into a shaded area, the reticle can bloom or become excessively too bright. The only time I really experienced this is while we were shooting in the woods. At times the sun would peek through where you were standing, and the targets may still be in the shadows. Now, if this is a regular problem for your shooting conditions, you can put a piece of tape over the fiber optic to limit the amount of light that it picks up. This is a pretty rare thing for me, at least where I shoot, but I did feel it was worth bringing up. Most of the time the optic works perfectly and the reticle appears to be well lit without being too bright. I wouldn't even really consider that a negative, it's just a thing you need to get accustomed to. The only really bad thing is the price. These things aren't cheap. If they were, I'd have like a dozen of them on most of my rifles, but they're not. So I have the one and the very tough decision to make on what rifle this thing is going to permanently land. I'd love to hear from you. Which gun would you attach a Trijicon ACOG TA44 to? The TA44 isn't only a great optic or red dot alternative, for me it's currently my favorite overall optic. Like I just said, if I could afford it, I'd have about a dozen of these things. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember, if you want to get a Trijicon TA44 or any other optic at Optics Planet, you can save 5% with the code ALARsenal5. You get the optics that you want and it helps out the channel a little bit. It's a win for everybody. Be sure to check us out on other social media like Instagram and Facebook. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. We got some really big reviews coming up that you won't want to miss. And if you want to help support Alabama Arsenal, the best possible way to do that is through Patreon. Every little bit helps. And again, guys, thank you so much for watching.